Okay. Last session we seen the cluster, so just to summarize on the cluster thing, the steps were basically to create a cluster first, then configure the UDDs and configure the Tango coherence, and then configure the GOC. Those are the three additional things. So the GOC and UDD configuration can be easily done by using the HA power tools, high availability power tools. The Tango coherence, you're going to configure it from the command prompt using the well-known addresses concept. Alright, so now what we are trying to see today is to configure the OHS part, which is a requirement for Oracle SOA. Many of the environments also have a hardware load balancer just to simplify the entire setup in front of SOA cluster, but a lot of people use OHS also. So just to let me take that image that we have created. Yeah, so here this part is what we're going to configure now, means OHS and then the proxy plugin, these two things. Along with OHS, web cache also will be configuring. Just to give you a better understanding of the architecture. See, this is one of the architectures of your environment, a possible one. If you see this one here, this is the external users here. Alright, in the external users, then just a minute, hold on please. Okay, now there are two OHS servers, these two. Alright, these OHS servers, obviously because there are two, you need a load balancer in front of them. So the traffic lands on the load balancer first. The load balancer divides between the OHS servers, and then it goes to a SOA cluster, which is this in this case. So a cluster is basically on two nodes, and then you have a Oracle coherence, which is again part of the SOA cluster. Then on the back end you have an Oracle rack, which is this. Alright, so both these nodes will actually use the same Oracle rack. And then you have optionally there is a firewall here. This setup is the firewall setup is only one firewall here. You won't usually have a second firewall between WebLogix and database. That's very rare. Usually there will be a firewall here, so that this area becomes a DMZ, demilitarized zone. Web servers are usually put into firewalls, so that internal users can access the web server, external users also can access the web server. But in this setup we don't usually use a firewall. So our setup is more like load balancer, two OHS servers, and then two Oracle SOA clusters. Alright. So what we are trying to do today is basically to create this OHS server here. We're going to create only a single OHS server. So we'll see how to install the OHS and then how to configure the proxy plugin, which is usually the one that gives the capacity to OHS server to load balance the request between this server, one node and the other node, like this. The diagram that we have seen yesterday. This where is it? This one. So the backend part is what we have created yesterday. The front part is what we're going to create today. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the installation and other stuff. So I'm going to connect to the cloud server. This is another similar architecture. This is a pretty jumbled one, so don't worry about it. Some of the part of this architecture is missing on the left side, so don't worry about it. This is the general structure of OHS that we're going to configure today. On the back end you have WebLogics, on the front end you have OHS server, and the mod underscore WL underscore OHS is a proxy plugin that we will be configuring. The proxy plugin is the one that gives the OHS server the capacity to load balance. That's one thing, guys. See, OHS by itself does not know how to load balance or how to talk to WebLogic. So just by installing OHS, it's not going to be sufficient. We need to configure the proxy plugin. The proxy plugin is the important one. Now in the integration, this is what we have done yesterday. Create a server cluster. After that we will be installing OHS, and this OHS will act like a software load balancer. And to do that, we will be configuring a proxy plugin mod underscore WL underscore OHS. Alright, so let's go ahead and do this one. The other box is not reachable yet. The second box of the cluster here is not reachable. Apache Web Server is the core. OHS is built on top of Apache, which means what Oracle did was Oracle took the open source Apache server, and then they modified certain parameters inside it, when certain features of Apache, and more importantly they have added support. Means if you go with Apache, obviously if there is a problem, there is nobody to support you. It's an open source product, but the same product renamed as OHS with slight modifications. Now Oracle says we are behind OHS, so if you have any problems we will sort them out. So there is a support for OHS server. Means if there is a bug or there is something, Oracle will immediately come in and try to fix it somehow for you. Now the same thing is true for IHS also, IBM's HTTP server. That's also built on top of Apache. So Apache OHS, in case of features, they both are same. Internally there are some differences. There are some certain enhancements, but they are minor. But most important difference is Apache is open source, which means no support if there is a problem. OHS, Oracle is with you, when there is a problem, and they will try to solve it. Hence, when there is a production issue in Apache server, there is nothing much you can do. If there is a bug, let's say if you hit a bug in Apache in production, then you have a problem and you don't know when it gets resolved. But when you hit a bug in OHS, there is Oracle behind you. It will try to solve it. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. There's one thing that the most important thing when you're installing multiple installations in Oracle middleware, the problem is when you install it into the same location like this, Oracle middleware, some of the files in Oracle_common are getting corrupted, which means when you install OHS, we will actually create a similar directory like this, Oracle_WT1, WebTire1. That actually can theoretically come into the same directory, but when it is when we are doing this installation into the same directory, instead of creating Oracle_WT1, it also adding certain files to Oracle Common. It also overwriting some files into Oracle Common, and that is creating a problem. Means the files are getting corrupted, so the enterprise manager will stop working. So just make sure you're not installing WebTire or OSB in the same directory as Oracle SY, which means just like this directory, we're going to create another directory like Oracle middleware 1, and under middleware 1 we'll be installing the WebTire. Alright, so let's just once we start doing it, you will have a better idea. So let me first extract those files. This is a file that was downloaded, alright, from Oracle's website, OFM WebTire for Linux. This is 11.117. So I'm going to extract this one into one of our directories. Let's extract it. This way B3. Let me create a directory, my WebTire. I'll be extracting it into this directory. Alright, so unzip -d into this directory, my file. -d will basically, this is a simplified unzip command, guys. If I unzip directly, it will be unzipped into the current directory. Instead of unzipping into the current directory, I'm telling unzip into this directory. That way I don't have to copy the file again and again to that remote directory. Okay, this is unzipped. Let's go to that location where we have unzipped it, which is here, ls. Okay, these are the three disks that were unzipped. Let's go ahead. This is actually your installer. Now this installation, it can be done in silent as well as console, GUI mode. A silent mode seems to require a response file that requires too many inputs. Now if I start giving a silent mode, there will be little confusion. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead with a GUI mode, which will be much easier to understand. Then later, once you understand the GUI mode, you guys can go ahead with a silent mode of installation using a response file. That I'll give you, the command to do that. 1 minute guys, this power cable seems to be having a problem. Okay, now I'm going to launch a GUI by exporting the display. So let's launch the Xming on our desktop and then forward X11 and log into that server again. So I'm going to launch Xming. Displaying exporting display is a two-step process only guys. First launch the Xming. So Xming is ready and open a session with X11. That's it. There's a background noise somewhere. Okay, let's forward that X11, then log in. Only two things, Xming and forward X11. That's it. So I'm logging in again into the cloud server. 659.233 code IT and code IT 789. Alright, so let's launch the run installer, which just now we have extracted. So let's go to the location P3 my web tier disk 1 run installer. Yeah, it launched the GUI, this one, Oracle Fusion Middleware 11G web tier. Now this is a much simpler way of installing OHS. It can be done using a response file based one also, but there are too many parameters that we have to pass, especially the ports. So that's why you will get confused first time. So once you know the at least once, then you can go ahead with silent later. So let's go ahead and move on to next. This is the welcome screen. Then the software updates. We don't want any software updates, so skip the software updates. Move on to next. Now there are two variations you can do. Either you can just install the software, or you can install and configure. Sometimes when you're selecting install and configure, installation is going through successfully, but configuration is failing. So you can either install the software only and configure later, or else you can try install configure at a time and see if it works. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead with install and configure. Installation will go through, configuration may fail. If it fails, we will continue from the configuration part again. So let's go ahead with install and configure. Means we are installing OHS server and we are also configuring an instance of OHS. That's what we are doing. It's like installing WebLogic and creating a domain. The same thing here. Installing OHS and creating an instance of OHS. So install and configure. Move on to next. This is doing its basic checks. something failed. See this one here. This is basically a operating system version. That's okay. Anyway, we are using Red Hat 6, so that's not certified yet. Same problem I think we had for SO also yesterday. That's okay. Let's look at other checks failures. Okay, this is not executed at all. The second, third and fourth are not executed at all because the first check failed. Okay, now you can do one thing. Normally what we do is this operating system certification parameter that it's taking, we can put it to either Red Hat 5.4 or Red Hat 5 or Red Hat, let's say Red Hat 5.4. Means you can dupe the installer to think that your system is actually Red Hat 5.4. For that, you'll require probably help from a system admin. Normally what happens is your installer picks up what type of operating system you are using from this location. Go to etc, do lsf and ltr. You will see a system release parameter. Now this is where it picks up this information from. Now if you get this file, this is Oracle Linux Server release 6.5. That's why it's throwing out that error. What we can do is, I can say Red Hat 5.5 or Red Hat 5.4, whatever is in this list that we have. Here we have Red Hat 5.4, right? So I can say Red Hat 5 and then ask the installer to retry it again. So it's basically duping your system. So I'm going to do that one. Because don't dupe the system if it is really not compatible. We know that system is compatible because we are on a higher version than certified. So, and just before changing, I want to take a backup of this one. So I changed it to one of the certified versions. And then I'll ask the installer to retry it. Now see, now it's okay. Now if you see this one checking operating system, Red Hat 6.5. 6.5. I started supposed to be 5.4. Okay, and then yeah, those numbers something that we have to change again, but you understood what we are trying to do, the concept. You just dupe that installer, you trick the installer to think that this is a Red Hat compatible version, and then it went on with the remaining checks. The remaining checks were actually good. The kernel parameters is good, recommended glib is good. This yellow mark, let's say, if it is certified, what is the question?
हाँ रवि
Mm-hmm.
Actually, say if it is certified like 5.4 or other versions of Red Hat, so it should basically look for any certificates from the authority, right, certifying authority, that it gets installed in that versions.
Nah, nah, it has nothing to do with SSL. The certifying ends. Oracle says this software is compatible with that that operating system. That's that kind of certified. This is not related to SSL.
Okay.
It basically Oracle saying that okay, you can install this software on Red Hat 5.5, Red Hat 5.6, like that. That's certification here. And so each software has to. If you look at the release notes of any software, the release note says that this software is certified for XYZ operating systems. Like when you install a software on Windows, it says it's certified for Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8. But it may say it's not certified for Windows 8 64-bit. That's the kind of certification we are looking here. This has nothing to do with SSL, not the SSL certificates. Okay, so now we are good to go. So let's move on. Here you will see there is one more thing. Let's see. Set arc 161 not found. See this one. This you will see this being failed. This is a known issue. Alright. If this is the only failure, you can move ahead with this failure. This is not a problem. Means even if this package is on the system, the installer will still say that it failed. Set arc 161. So don't worry about this failure. This is a known issue. They're trying to fix it in 12. I think they fixed it or not. I'm not sure. But this is a known one. Set arc. So if you see that this has failed, there's nothing problem. You can move on with it. You can do that one, Shravan. We can obviously do ignore sys prerequisites, but we have to understand what is that we are ignoring. You cannot ignore the important prerequisites. Later when the server is running, you will have problems. So obviously we can say ignore the sys prereqs. That's an option. But if we ignore too many requisites, we might have issues when we are running the server. So we should know what we are ignoring. So these couple of things that OS certification and the set arc thing, these are two known things. So those two things you can actually ignore and move forward. So let's continue with those two things. So continue this installation. Now this is what I was telling about. Be very careful here. Do not install it under Oracle middleware again. Means under the same directory you have Oracle underscore SOA. So if you go back here, so let's go to our location. See this one, under Oracle middleware we have this directory. We don't want to install the web tier into the same directory, so not here. Instead of this one, I'm going to change it to middleware 1. This is also a known issue, guys. Officially not acknowledged by Oracle, but all the forums are pretty much buzz with this known issue. If you install Oracle SOA and then Oracle web tier and OSB into the same directory, some of the files in this get corrupted. So the enterprise manager basically will not work. So make sure you do it in separate directories. So Oracle SOA is in separate directory, Oracle web tier is in separate directory. So here instead of middleware, we want to give middleware 1 here. Alright, and inside that directory it will create Oracle underscore WT1, which is the OHS home. So go ahead and move on. This is security updates. Provide your email to be informed of security issues. We don't really want any security updates. So unselect it. Move on to next. You have not provided an email. Do you wish to remain uninformed? Yes, I want to wish. I want to remain uninformed. I don't want any of your security updates. these are the two configuration parts. The installation part is okay, means that parameters we have given. Now the configuration, we are configuring the Oracle HTTP server, and then we are also configuring the web cache. Web cache is not required for uh, you know setup which does not have static content request, guys. Here we are configuring web cache only just to see how things work, that's it. But for SOA you don't really require web cache, because in our environment or in the setup that we have, we are using this OHS as a load balancer. Complete path is different. That's correct. Yeah, let me change it. That's cool. Students SYAP3. Excellent. Oracle middleware 1. Yeah, this now it's good. Home encode IT students SYAP3 Oracle middleware 1. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Then okay, I wish to receive security. No. I will remain uninformed. Yes. Okay. Again, Oracle HTTP server and web cache. Now these two things can be managed in two ways. One is a command line one, other one is a GUI based one. Let me show you the management tools for these two things. So you have a OHS server. This is a OHS instance, let's say. Alright. Then in front of OHS you usually have web cache. This also is called an instance. Now these two instances are managed by what is called a OPMN daemon. OPMN. OPMN daemon actually manages these two things. Means if you want to start this thing, stop these things, anything at all, you have to actually go through the OPMN daemon. OPMN is Oracle Process Manager and Notification Server. Oracle Process Manager and Notification Server. Now the OPMN is a daemon, so which is running on the background. But to access OPMN and give commands to OPMN daemon, you have two modes. One is a command line mode, which is OPMN CTL, and then let's say one is command line. This is OPMN CTL, OPMN control. This is a command line tool. You can give commands to OPMN using command line tool, or else you can use Enterprise Manager. The Enterprise Manager that we've been using. Excellent. It's gone. This is OHS. This is web cache. Alright, so this is the OPMN. Oracle Process Manager and Notification Server. Now this OPMN is the one that's controlling. This is the controlling daemon for both of them. This one and this one. And you can access it using a command line tool, which is OPM and CTL, or a GUI tool, which is the Enterprise Manager WebLogic. So this is the beauty of OHS. Means OHS can be pretty much configured using WebLogic Enterprise Manager. Now, because you have an Enterprise Manager, you will require a WebLogic domain with at least an admin server. So you need some place to deploy this Enterprise Manager. So deploy this Enterprise Manager, and from Enterprise Manager you can actually configure or control a GUI based one. We will be seeing both of these things. So we'll see how to operate it using OPM and CTL, and we'll also see how to configure it using Enterprise Manager. So we will use one of our existing WebLogic domains to integrate. Now when you are doing this one, your WebLogic, if you want to integrate, it should be running. So what I'll do is I'll keep our WebLogic up, the SOA domain that we have. Alright, I'm going to keep it up so that we can register it with that Enterprise Manager. So user projects, domains, and code SOA. Let me start the database. It's only admin server, so let's not start the database. Admin server can run without the database, so we want to reduce the load on that box. So the admin will come up. Now here, yeah, see this one. This screen basically tells you all those things. Configure HTTP server, configure a web cache, Oracle Process Manager notification, OPMN. It has to be configured. Without OPMN you cannot manage these two things. But to contact the OPMN, there are two ways. OPMN CTL is one thing, and second thing is associate the selected components with a WebLogic domain. Means this is the Enterprise Manager configuration. You can do it now or you can do it later also. There's nothing wrong with it. You can actually configure an Enterprise Manager anytime you want. So
Anil, quick question. Regarding the registering the like the WebLogic with the HTTP server, is that what the checkbox is? The third one?
That's right. Registering OHS with a WebLogic.
So there is a command. There is a command registration something.
Right. OPM and CTL has a option, register admin or something. That also can be used.
Why we do that?
If you want to manage OHS from Enterprise Manager.
Like you mean the not the WebLogic console, but the other Enterprise Manager
the Enterprise
console?
Fusion middleware control.
Middleware.
Yeah.
Okay.
That can be used. Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead. So we'll be using OPM and CTL and also Enterprise Manager. We will see both. So let's.
Anil, this is Pavan.
Yes.
Quick question. Does that mean this OHS server is tied to this specific domain only?
No. This is only for management. OHS, you can manage it. You can target it to any domain you want. That will be in the proxy plugin. This is only for managing the OHS. Means let's say you want to start and stop the OHS. That can be done using this domain.
Okay.
Managing has nothing to do with the redirection. Redirection happens in proxy plugin. Yeah, you're asking something.
Okay. So OHS doesn't have GUI by itself, no?
No. It has only OPM and CTL. The command line.
Okay.
It doesn't have its own, so that's why we integrate it with Enterprise Manager.
So to make it like always, so, go ahead, Pawan.
When you say web cache, so that comes as a part of OHS,
That
right?
comes as a part of the installer. It's not a part of OHS. OHS is different, web cache is different, but when we download the software, this is what we usually download, this file, the web directory. So this has two components, both web cache and OHS. So if you ask me the question, is web cache part of OHS? No, it's not, but they both are bundled into the same zip file.
It's not part of OHS.
It's not a part of OHS. They both are usually together because web cache sits in front of OHS in a regular configuration. So that's why they both are bundled together.
Okay, so you mean the web cache is being I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Voice and network delay both. So it means like the web cache is installed on top of OHS?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And it's optional. If you see here, if you see here, you see we have selected. If you don't select it, web cache won't get installed.
Okay.
I got it. Means it's not necessary that web cache needs to be installed always. Web cache is a separate product. The purpose of web cache is to buffer the static pages. Now, in all the environments, you don't have static pages like the SOA environment that we are using. We don't have static pages. The backend, the purpose of OHS here is basically to load balance the internal incoming service calls and callbacks. So we don't have any static content here. So the web cache is not needed in this environment, in this setup. So in that case, we choose or we can choose not to install the web cache. But there may be another environment which is basically only web cache, and let's forget about WebLogic. Let's say you have only web cache and OHS. They have set up that thing. In that case, any request which is not popular will come to OHS. If it is the request like about.html coming 100 times, it will be served from the web cache itself. Forget about the entire WebLogic part on the backend. Let's say you're not using WebLogic. You're simply using a web cache with OHS. That's it. That's your requirement is satisfied. So in such an environment, web cache may serve as a buffer for static pages, popular pages especially. All right, you got clarity on that?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, Srinivas, you are asking something.
Fine. I thought of I think it's covered already.
Okay.
So initially I was supposed to ask like when the domain to which we configure the this HTTP server, basically it's only gets associated with one domain.
No, that is not the kind of association. We are basically using enterprise manager.
In terms of monitoring, like
monitoring the OHS.
Yeah, monitoring the OHS, like say you have multiple domains, and say that the enterprise manager is there for you can have for each and every domain, right?
Yes.
So, but saying that this association of HTTP server, like when you go to the enterprise manager there, you see the OHS from there.
Right.
So that association will be there only with the domain you
associate with. Yes, that's right. That's right.
So if you have multiple domains, if you go into the second domain, enterprise manager, you won't see that association.
No. We don't want to manage OHS from multiple locations.
Multiple, yeah, that's what. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so here web cache. I selected web cache also just to give a glance into it. Let's move on. And this is a server we are associating our OHS with. So let's see where our admin is running. To this admin I'm linking it. The same SOA cluster thing. I'm linking it to the SOA cluster itself. So currently, let me log into the enterprise manager, the EM 10,001. user. Our source servers are not up, so we didn't bring those things up yet. This is code ATM 123. Alright, so this is our enterprise manager. This is pretty much empty. We don't have SOA, we don't have PAM, anything. That's why the left side is empty. Now when we integrate OHS, you will see another entry here, a web tier entry. So let's go ahead and do that. So here, give the details of the admin server on which the enterprise manager is running are deployed. 6, port number is 10001. Password to username password for that admin server. Encode ADM 123. Next. So it will try to register it with that web logic. Now this is the instance home. If you see this thing, this diagram that we have produced. Earlier we have given OHS home, means OHS software will be installed. The instance home is like domain home. So it's pretty much same like WebLogic home and domain home. The same way here, web tier home, which is this one up to WT1, and inside WT1, one of the instances is what we are creating. The instance is instance 1. On that instance, the components are OHS and web cache. The architecture is slightly confusing here, guys, so just make sure you pay a little attention here. This is what Oracle says the structure is. It's something like, let's say there is an instance. This is what instance is. The name of this instance is instance 1. In this instance, there are two components. Component 1, component 2. The component 1 is OHS 1. Then the component 2 is web cache 1. These two are obviously, the instance itself is managed by OPMN. Using this OPMN, you can manage the entire instance. You can manage the entire instance or the individual components separately also. Means you can stop only OHS component or only web cache component like that, or else the entire instance. So the terminology is somehow is still confusing, but at this moment this is how the structure of OHS is. There is a OPMN, process manager, controlling process. There is an instance, that's what we are creating now. Inside the instance there are components OHS 1 and web cache 1, and these things are controlled by using either OPMN CTL or the enterprise manager. OPMN CTL is a command line. This thing, enterprise manager, is your GUI based one. Alright, so that's what you are seeing on the screen here. OHS component name is OHS 1. Web cache component is web cache 1. The name of the instance itself is instance 1. The location of the instance is under this, say this one, Oracle underscore WT1 instances instance 1, and inside this instance 1 we'll have the OPMN CTL. We will go there and operate it later. So let's go ahead and start creating it. Now this is screen is if you have web cache being installed. The web cache has an administrator of its own. Means you need to do certain activities of web cache, especially like you will define which is a popular page. For example, any page that gets hit 10 times is a popular page, or any page that is lying, any page that was not accessed in the last 10 hours is should be discarded from the buffer. That kind of rules means invalidate all those objects and others. Basically, the web cache part means we know web cache works for popular pages. So it's one thing is for static content, but inside the static content, not every static content is buffered in web cache. Only the popular static content means that page request should be there more compared to the others, means it has a popular page. Now to define a popular page, you have to log in as a web cache administrator. Alright, now that requires a password. Anyway, we are not using web cache, so I'm just giving the same password, encode adm 123, encode adm 123. We're not getting too deep into web cache, but that's what the actual configuration is. Now the second thing is here the port numbers we have to define, like OHS port and then web cache port, OHS SSL and OHS non-SSL. Now there are a couple of ways of doing it. Either you can specify all the ports and give it to in a file, in a ports file name called static ports file, or else you can ask the installer to automatically configure the ports. If you say auto port configuration, let's see what kind of ports get created. I'm going to show you a file which has all the ports configuration. It's somewhere in static ports. It will come, a sample file comes along with your installer. So let me go to students SYB3, my web dir, disk 1, stays response. See this one, static ports. Shift insert. Now these are the static ports that get automatically created. OPM and local port is this one, and this is important. OHS gets installed to 488. OHS SSL is 4443. The same way web cache will be 27777, and then web cache SSL is 7781. So we are interested in OHS more of. Web cache we're not really. OHS is actually going to 8888. Now these are the default ports. If you don't want it, then you can set up your custom ports in this file and pass this static ports file to this installer here. Alright, you can say all my ports are listed in this file. Use those ports, or else I am using the default ports which are in that static ports.ini file. Alright, so automatically the installer will configure all those ports defined in the same file. They will be default ports. If you want custom ports, define the custom ports in this file and pass that file using this option. Either way it's okay. So let's move on with auto ports configuration. That's the summary. So if you see, we are installing it in this location. SYB3 Oracle middleware 1 Oracle underscore WT1. This is different from our Oracle underscore SY directory. That's one point. The name of the instance is instance 1. Then the disk space requirements, about 2 gigs it requires, and it's going to connect to this domain enterprise manager. So let's go ahead and install it. You can actually save this entire thing in a response file and use that response file later for silent installation. That can be done. So install it. Apache is 200 MB. OHS and web cache also you can consider. And there is an enterprise manager integration part is there, so that will take a lot of this thing. Java based controlling thing. OHS has that special feature.
Anil, with Oracle OHS, can we use like PHP and all those? Like we can host a website with.
Yeah. It's exactly like Apache. Anything you can do with Apache can also be done with OHS. PHP engine is there internally in Apache, so that can be done.
You cannot do you cannot deploy .NET applications, right?
No.
Anybody? No.
No, I can't. After installation, it will actually go ahead with the configuration. That's where it's failing sometimes. Let's see what happens this time. Okay, starting execution of post install scripts.
Anil, I have a question on deployment.
Yes.
When we deploy the composite, so first it will compile and then it do the actual deployment. So I read it some in document. So the actual compilation done by the AND script that is not part of the SOA. The skill machine will take care. So
No. It won't be compiled at this point. Uday. What happens is the compile here in our case in a real project environment. What happens is the developer will write the code, and the developer themselves will compile it. That's when you are getting a jar file. A jar file is always a compiled one.
okay.
So what the ant that you said they will use in the G developer. So in the G developer the ant is there. So when they say compile and create a jar file, so it's the ant inside the G developer actually compiles and delivers a jar file outside, and that jar file is given to us as an administrator. So we start with the code that is already compiled. We are doing the deployment part only. The compilation is actually taken care by the developer. They cannot give us raw code, right? We're not the one to compile. Even for Java, they give us only a compiled code, a var file or AR file. So they do the compilation, the developer. And after the compilation is when we get the jar file. That's from that location our work actually starts.
Okay.
But we can also we can do the compilation if we have the code. There's nothing really complicated or great about it. It's a very simple AND script. You can simply say package. There is an AND command, one command. It does it. It's not that difficult. Don't worry about it. If you need that command, let me know. I'll give you that command.
Oh, sure.
Anil, this is Pawan.
Yeah.
Not a technical question. I've missed the classes on Monday and Tuesday. So I believe the topics which are covered could be creating a cluster for the SOA environment and the coherence, right? Those are two topics you have covered or something else?
Monday, Tuesday. Okay. Did you see those videos? Those should be there on the server.
No.
Exact on
Not
Monday,
yet.
I'm not sure. Everything is there on that server, so you can pretty much download it. Monday, Tuesday, I'm not exactly sure what we have covered.
Last two classes were about only cluster, Anil.
Yes, that's right. Last two class, yes, we have created a cluster and we have set it up. But that is only Monday, Tuesday. Okay, yesterday we had a cancellation. Yeah, yes, that's Pawan. I think most likely it's a cluster.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's on the server, so the videos is please go through those things. That should. If you have any questions, you can always give me a call or send me a mail.
Sure, I will. Thank you.
Okay. So here this time, even the configuration is pretty done. All right. It has installed and then it configured also. See this one. It configured. It created an instance. Then it created OHS1. It created web cache 1. Now if this fails when you are doing it, all that you have to do is launch the configuration wizard again. Now to launch the configuration wizard, this is what you're going to do. Sometimes it may happen that after the installation the configuration failed. In that case, this is what you're going to do. So go to the location where we have installed this web OHS. We have installed OHS in middleware 1. This is the new one. Alright, see this one. This also created Oracle Common, guys. This is what is getting corrupted with the previous one. Oracle W1. Go into bin. You have config.sh. Launch this config.sh. You will move from the instance creation point. It's just like WebLogic. You install WebLogic, then you can configure a domain. So you're launching config.sh after the installation. If the configuration fails, but in our case, even the configuration went on smooth, so we're moving forward with this thing. Alright, so that's summary and everything. This is where all the available URLs, if you see, Oracle HTTP server, this is where the OHS is running now. This is the SSL port, this is the web cache, and then web cache SSL, web cache administration, statistics. Web cache has a lot of URLs. One is SSL, non-SSL. Administration port is something else, and statistics of web cache can also be found on a separate URL. The last four are not really important for us. The first two, or even the first one, is important. OHS, this is where it's running, 7777. So let's finish and hit that OHS. Now before we go ahead and hit the OHS, let's see how OHS looks like. PSFNEF grep for OHS. These are the process related to OHS. See this thing. HTTPD worker, HTTPD worker, and other audit related things, log rotation stuff, all that stuff. See this thing. These are the daemons, worker daemons that are working for OHS. The same way, if you grep for web cache, you will see a couple of processes here. Alright, this is a web cache daemon. Then this is a web cache admin. You see this one, this is a web cache D. This is a web cache A. So web cache daemon and web cache admin. So that's for web cache. The same way you will see OPMN also. Grep for OPMN. This is the OPMN daemon which we will be connecting to for managing this web cache and OHS. Alright, so these are all the processes. Apart from this, you have command line tool OPMNCTL. So let's go to instance home. So you are currently at OHS home, or is usually called Oracle home, or this is in specific OHS home. This is OHS home. Under OHS home, we have created our instance under instances directory here. So go into the location where your instance is created. Our instance name is instance 1. In this you have OHS related configuration, the bin also. So let's go to bin. This is where you will find OPMNCTL. This OPMNCTL is a command line tool for connecting to OPMN daemon, which in turn will control the instance, which has two components, OHS and web cache. That's architecture, guys. So let's just hit it without any options. It will show you all the options. So this one, just hit it without giving anything. You can start, or you can start all components, stop all. You can actually start a single component. Before we go there, let me give you a first hand view of it. OPMNCTL status. You see this one. So you are connected to instance 1 already because you are executing OPMNCTL from instance 1 bin directory. So it's basically telling you this is the component, what type of process it is, the process ID, whether it's alive or shut down. So you can stop and start these web cache and OHS instances from OPMNCTL itself. So here, let's say if I want to stop everything, OPMNCTL stop all. This will be stopping everything. Status, if you give, see this one, the OPMN daemon also is down. Now let's say we start all. It'll start the OPMN daemon and also the components. Now let's look at the status. So everything. You can shut down only one of the components. Let's say we want to shut down the web cache. So OPMNCTL, see these command lines here. Stop process, start process. That's what you're going to use. Alright. Stop process, attribute value. Stop process, IAS component equal to web cache 1. That's what you're going to give. It's called IAS components. See that these are the web cache components, IAS components. For some reason they have borrowed this name IAS. It's Internet Application Server. This is the old terminology of Oracle, I think. So they borrowed the same name from a different component. So here you will see IAS being used in OHS. So we are stopping out of these two, web cache and OHS. Out of these two, we are stopping one process. Stop process. IAS component is web cache 1. So let's stop it. That stopped. Let's look at the status. Now you see this is down, this is down, only OHS is up now. You can bring it up again using, let's say you want to stop IAS also, component OHS1. See here, stop all and stop process. The difference is stop all will stop the OPM and daemon also, whereas stop process will stop only the components. But unless you are very specific about what you are stopping, you can use OPM and stop all for stopping, OPM and start all for starting. That's what you will require most of the times. So I'm going to use OPM and CTL stop all, then start all, then status. That's it. Alright, so this is a command line tool. Just like a command line tool, we also have a GUI based tool that we have integrated, right? So here, this is the domain to which we tried to link our OHS to. See this one here. This is the additional thing that got integrated. So on the web tier, you will see OHS1, web cache 1. These are the two components. You can stop, start OHS from here also. But remember, this requires OPM and daemon. Means you cannot have a stop all here and then start from here. That's not possible. So you need to have the OPM and daemon running, and then only you will be able to manage it. So here OHS is showing down, it's actually up. Let's try to start it. So OHS control start up. So it's operation startup on target this. It succeeded. You should see a green arrow here. Looks like there is an error here in the admin log. Access denied. Some access related issue. See this one. Getting attribute instance names. Access denied. Required role admin operator monitor. Did we give the wrong password username? It's registered but not allowing us to control. I'm trying to restart the admin server. Let me restart the admin server. After restarting admin, let's see if it works. Okay, this is up. Let's log into the Enterprise Manager. Encode ADM and code ADM 123. WebDire OHS. Yeah, now it's good. So your OHS is running. Looks like that required a restart. There is a SQL error also. It's not able to connect to OWSM. That's why this error, authentication error. The security exception was because admin was not able to reach the database. So it's trying to reach MDS, OWSM, the security related schema. So just if you want to get rid of that error or start your database, that should solve the problem. Start up. Start the listener. Okay, let's go back. See this one. Look at the ports. So you will be able to look at the ports here, port uses. So OHS is running. Now if you go into web cache, web cache is also running. You can see the same status from OPM and CTL also here. OPM and CTL status. Alright, these are all alive and this is the process IDs for OHS and then web cache. And then if you want to see the ports usage, so let's go into OHS1. See the ports that are being used, click on port usage. See this one, this is HTTP port is 7777. For HTTPS it's using both the ports 9999 and 4443. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit on 7777 and see if OHS is actually responding or not. So 192.7777 slash, just you don't have to give anything. It should give the default page. This is the default page it's given. This is your OHS server. This is the default application that deployed to OHS server. So the same way you can actually hit the web cache also. Web cache is running on, let's see the port number for web cache. Go to web cache. Now all these details are in httpd.conf file, guys. Apache OHS is no different from Apache. You can do everything from the command prompt also. So web cache, ports usage. So this one, this port is listening on normal port 7785, which means you can actually hit on 7785 also and still get the same page. 7785. The web cache is a pretty simple product, guys. If look at it, looks in the buffer. If the page is in the buffer, it gives it from the buffer. Otherwise, it sends it to OHS. OHS will pick it up from the hard disk and give it to you. So 7785, we are hitting the web cache. It also giving the same thing. Now, if you hit the same page multiple times, it gets actually stored in OHS. So here if you go into OHS, you will see the list of popular pages. See in the administration, see this one. You have all the rules and everything defined. Caching rules means what is a popular page, how long it will take to expire, what's the resource limit, clusters. These are related to web cache more of. Access log, event log, sessions, configuration, all that the thing is there. And in the monitoring, look at this one. This will tell you what are the popular requests that web cache is looking at. Now these are some of the URLs that are being asked frequently. These are the popular requests. Most of the times that's what they are being asked for. So those pages are actually buffered in the web cache itself. So web cache basically gives you this page from here itself. That's a very basic of web cache. Let's not get too deep into it. OHS is what we are interested. So in OHS you have everything here. You can administer, you can configure everything here, you can start everything from control, you can monitor the performance, you can look at the log files, everything here. Now in OHS configuration we basically have a mod underscore wl underscore OHS configuration. This is a proxy plugin. Now the proxy plugin configuration is very easy with the enterprise manager. So if you click on this one, this is your proxy plugin configuration page, guys. Alright, here you got a WebLogic cluster on the backend, give the location of the cluster. Otherwise, if you have a single host port, give that host port. If it is a cluster, you will give the list of servers separated by comma. In our case, let's say like this: 192.168.128.6. We have one thing running on 8100, comma. Other server of our cluster is running on the second box, 192.168.128.3.8100. That's. And if you have only one server on the back end, you can still use OHS to redirect dynamic request to that one server. In that case, you will be using this one. Alright. Then the dynamic server list is on this parameter, basically enables, let's say currently a WebLogic cluster has only 2 managed servers. Then you went on and you added a third managed server. Now WebLogic server has, so a cluster has 3 nodes. In that case, a normal way is to modify this parameter, means add the additional server details here. But if you enable this dynamic server list on, your Apache or OHS will automatically detect that newly added server. That's what this dynamic server list on means. If it is not a dynamic server list, it's static, means even if you add one more server into WebLogic cluster on the backend, that will not get updated here. Whereas if you have a dynamic server list on, if a new WebLogic server is added to a cluster, that will be detected, and that's only for a WebLogic cluster. A standalone server added to a WebLogic server will not be detected. And the reason why it gets detected is because they are in a cluster, they know about each other. If they are standalone servers, they don't know about each other, so they won't tell the OHS server about the newly added server. So dynamic server lists can be kept on if you on the back end if you have a cluster, and if you are adding and deleting servers to that cluster randomly. I don't think that gets done from time to time, so either you can keep it on or you can unselect it. Either way it's okay. But this is if you have a cluster on WebLogic, if you add server to it, it gets automatically detected. Then again you can define an error page. Debug you can set on or off. You can set log file details, WL log file, WebLogic temporary directory. Alright, paths and trim, but you are not going to define all these things. What you're going to define is this thing. The match expression means when should the request be sent to the backend. This part you're telling where it should be sent, means to these servers send my request, but when should it send it means OHS should identify that something is static content or something is dynamic content. That is done by using an expression. So if you see here an example, it's a nice example here, star.jsp. If there is a star.jsp, it says send it to this WebLogic host, this WebLogic port, put the debug on, path prepend is /test, whatever it is. Not leave the path prepend part, concentrate on this. So if you're saying if the incoming URL is a JSP page, send it to this IP port. The same way here I can say if the incoming URL is any URL, I want to send it to one of the servers on the backend. In our case, it can be anything. Alright, so I'm putting star here. Then I have a problem. Some of the requests that are coming in are admin server requests. Other requests are coming in are SOA infra requests. Or let's say here. If you see it here, we have two kinds of URLs coming in through our OHS. Assume we have those two kinds, like an admin server we have, then we have a SOA cluster, let's say. So admin server, if the request is coming in, it will be enterprise manager http IP port /em. Whereas when it comes to any of these two, it will be like SOA infra. So there will be a http IP port /SOA infra. All requests to SOA infra will start with SOA infra, if you have observed it or not. All our composites that are deployed to SOA infra will have this structure: IP port of the server /SOA infra. Now when you have a SOA infra, now both this server and this server have SOA infra. That's not a problem. Means when a request or when a callback is coming, it will come to this URL. So the callbacks, all of them are again coming through OHS. So the OHS should realize that the EM request should be sent to admin server. SOA infra should be load balanced between these two. Means if I reverse the sentence, the enterprise manager request should not land on SOA infra. If it lands on SOA infra or SOA server, it will fail. The same way, SOA infra request should not land to the admin server. Here we are assuming a scenario where all the requests are coming through OHS, including the EM request. The same situation can be for a BAM also. If there is a BAM, alright, then the BAM URL will be different slightly. All the BAM requests will be like IP port Oracle BAM, alright, with some XYZ or some other URL. Basically it will not be SOA infra anymore. So each type of request should be redirected to one specific group of servers. That's what we are trying to achieve here. That will be done by what is called a location tag. A location tag in OHS server. So that location tag is here. Let's see how we define that location tag here. So go to the enterprise manager. You see this location here. It basically gives you an example. If the location is /web, send it to this WebLogic cluster. So here I am saying if the location is /enterprise manager, means all the EM requests should be sent to my admin server, which is 192.168.128.6. 10,001, or I can put it in WebLogic host and port also. Let's say instead of cluster I put it into host port, because this is only one server. If there are multiple servers, I'll put it to WebLogic cluster. Then the rest of the things I'm not setting up anything. You can set debug on. So that's for enterprise manager. The same way, if it is SUA infra, I want to send it to a WebLogic cluster, which is the one that we have defined before. So I'm going to copy this one, paste it here. Alright. So this part we're going to leave. The same way you can add as many locations as you want, guys. Means each type of request you are sending it to a different server, even though all of them are coming into the same OHS server. So here, once you have a SOA infra, any composite invocation gets done at OHS level. Means OHS will receive the request, and behind OHS we have SOA cluster. The SOA cluster will, the OHS will actually load balance the request to SOA cluster, and it uses this location tag to round robin it between these two SOA nodes that we have. And once you have set up this thing, apply. That's it. Your configuration is pretty much done. OHS configuration. A proxy plugin configuration is very easy. Now you will see the same configuration on the backend. If you see it on the backend, file name is something like this, instance1. Go into config, go into OHS configuration, OHS1. You see this http d.conf file. This file is a starting point. So in this file you will have OHS mod related thing, mod or WebLogic related thing. See this thing here. Include the configuration files needed for mod_WebLogic. So it basically includes another file which is mod_wl_ohs.conf. That file also in the same directory, and inside that file, which is this mod_wl_ohs, inside this file whatever we have given just now went in. See this thing. These are things that we have given just now. This is the if module that was configured already. We given a match expression star, and we given two location tags: location enterprise manager, location SOA infra. Alright, that's it. You can actually come into the backend and do this thing also. That's also okay. There's nothing wrong with it. You can set the location tags on the backend. The easier way is to do it on the front end. So do it once on the front end, then you will be comfortable on the backend. This is exactly same thing as Apache, but much simpler. Once this is done, you are ready to send your request to the backend. Now let's try to restart our OHS server, and then we'll hit the test base enterprise manager or something. So I'm restarting the OHS. OHS is succeeded. I'm just showing it to you from the enterprise manager also. Earlier we have done using OPM and CTL. Alright, so OHS is up now. Alright, once OHS is up, now let's hit the OHS and ask us for enterprise manager. 192.168.128.6. OHS is running on 7777, and to this we are asking EM. Means it should be routed to our admin server on a location based routing. So if we get the page, it means it's working. Failure of Apache Bridge. It says the backend server is not running. Apache Bridge failure is basically the backend not running. So let's go to that Actually, our server is running. It's 10,001. Did we configure 10,001 only?
Port number correct or not?
I think it's wrong. Let's just look at it. 10,001 only we have given. EM should be read at 10,001. So something is going wrong. Let's go to the log file and try to troubleshoot it. So I'm going to the OHS log. See this one. OHS logs are here. Always go to instance home first thing. This is your instance. Under instances you have instance 1. That's your instance. So you're here ls. You got it under diagnostics. Under diagnostics logs you got OHS related logs, OHS 1. These are the logs, guys. So let's look at OHS 1.log. You got access log, metric log. You got a lot of logs. We're going to see all these logs. So let's see OHS 1.log. That seems to be the latest one. Let's see what happened here. This is the error. Host address this trying index at the backend. It went to 8100. It failed. What time it is? 6:43:53. That's the latest one. I went to the end of the file. See, this is on 6. It tried. It's trying index. It's trying index.html at the backend host. It failed. Okay. Let's look at another file. Access log. At 503. 503 is an internal server error. I don't see the enterprise manager request at all. What is this console log? Okay, this is what we are seeing on the console. Okay, let's try to redo it once and see what's happening. OHS 1.log. EM. You see this thing? EM. Why is it going to the EM request is also going to 3. It's not supposed to go to 3, isn't it? It's supposed to go to 6, 10,001. It never actually went to EM. It went to 3, 8001. EM. It went to 3, 8001 again. EM. It went to 8, 3001 again. It's always going to 3, 8001. That's why it's failing. Let's look at the configuration again. Let's go back to command prompt. Students SYAP3 Oracle middleware 1 Oracle WT1 instances instance 1 config OHS1 mod underscore wl underscore OHS.conf. This is this. The configuration is correct. Why is it going to? I think this is picking up this thing. I'm going to remove this WebLogic cluster thing. Just keep the location based tags. Alright, I think this is a wrong configuration we have given. We have given at both locations. I want to remove this thing. WebLogic cluster commented. Alright, and only keep the location based, and that's actually the correct one. I think I have given both the locations. So go ahead, restart your OHS. Instances bin opm and ctl stop all. Start all. Okay, now let's go ahead and hit that enterprise manager. Yeah, now you got it. Alright, so if you look at the logs also, I don't think you will have anything this time. Yeah, this time there's nothing. So basically we were able to hit OHS server and get the enterprise manager URL. A location based routing is what we have done. The same way, if the request is for SOA infra, which will be here like this, it will get redirected to one of the SOA instances that we have on the backend. So what we're going to do is today we'll stop it here. Tomorrow we'll bring up our cluster, we'll deploy a composite on the cluster, and then we bring up the OHS server in front of it. We will hit the OHS server and see if the composite is getting invoked. Then we will kill one of that servers, the SOA instances, and then we will send it again and see if the OHS is redirecting to the remaining one or not. Alright, that's your OHS and OHS integration with WebLogic. Any questions in here? Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, you can log off. I'll see you in the morning, and we'll continue with a bit of whatever is left, and then we'll continue with OSB. I guess.
We'll need sample.
Yeah, I've seen your mail. I'll send it today.
Hello.
I'll send it today.
Okay. And
Yeah, I've seen the mail. Yes.
And another thing is, any frequently asked questions and.
No, there are no frequently. One thing that gets asked is always about the dehydration store and the composite instances. Apart from that, the rest of them are. It's still, we don't even have interview questions. Dehydration store and composite instances. That's the area where most of the questions are coming. And installation is
Okay.
also another
I
important area. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just anything, any questions do you think that we should know before we take any call for? So
There are some questions I got
this
about some
usually
questions with
uh,
they are more of conceptual questions, all of them. There is no real-time question as such in SOA yet, because everything is new for everybody. You will see concept related questions like what's a dehydration store, what sort of the stables, what's the schema, how do you install it, and then what's the difference between BPL mediator, what are the components, what is human workflow, what is purging. Those are the questions that you get. What is a cluster? What is a coherence thing? Why do you need coherence? What is Tangasol? How do you configure Tangasol? Yesterday, a couple of our students went to Oracle interview at Bangalore. So they asked pretty much the exact same questions that I told you now. Means they're all conceptual questions. Nobody is yet asking any real-time. Troubleshooting is far away. Even the actual implementation related questions are also not being asked. It's all concept. So all that you have to, really, if you ask me what to prepare whatever is in our sessions. That's enough. You won't get questions outside these sessions.
okay.
Go through the PDFs once, a couple of times. Try to understand what
Okay.
we talked about. That's enough. You will be able to answer 90% of the questions.
Okay. And one more thing, do we have or any kind of batch job processing for the server?
No. You may have a purging,
No.
purging cron job. So, but that's not a uh, our domain. Means it's more gets done by DBA, but we do monitor it. So in the during purging session, we will see what that script is. It's a database script. Apart from that, SOA does not have any other mandatory batch jobs as such. If you have batch jobs, they will be more on this thing. Day 8 EXE. What is EXE? Okay, EXE is missing. Okay, Dinesh, I'll see. I'll upload it. And yeah, the badge jobs thing that you're asking. So what does not require any of its own badge jobs as such. They will be custom badge jobs from environment to environment. That's all. Alright, anything else, guys? Okay then, I'll see you tomorrow and we'll continue with OSB. Okay, thanks very much guys. I'm dropping off. I'll see you tomorrow.